that most of the things that we experience, we regard as things that happen to us, which we ourselves do not originate, which are events expressing some sort of power or activity that is external to ourselves. And if you consider that, you realize that what you mean by yourself is rather narrowly circumscribed.
What the hell just happened? What in the fresh? Maybe I shouldn't have updated to the beta. Hello? World? What in the fresh hell? Am I okay now? Am I gonna yeet myself off screen again? That was terrifying. I didn't even move. You know, like in my chair or anything. I'm scared to do a motion in case it happens again. Oh, man, why am I yawning? I hope y'all are having a good Thursday. I briefly forgot what day it was. Oh, Jesus. I'm back. Man. I don't remember who that was, but, one of y'all, probably Weeby, linked me to the... What were they? The words I can think. The Vtuber that has the most technical difficulties. I think I'm coming for that spot. Alrighty. Hello. I hope y'all have maybe like a little snack, some water, so we can have a nice, cozy little stream where I teach you psychology, and then, if the Twitch gods allow, play a video game. Woo! Agua. Alrighty. Oh, Jesus, it happened again. What is... Come back. Hello? Oh My sweet lord. Someone, okay, y'all, I don't even know what's happening, but y'all gotta clip this. I don't even know. Apparently I'm breaking. This is, I'm sorry, but this is hilarious. Oh my god, I can't stop laughing. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna, oh my god, I'm gonna close VFace and open it up again. Oh man. Ooh, I needed that. I needed that. I needed that. Well, damn. The one time. Well, you can always, even if you can't clip right now, you can always go back and watch a thing and clip it later if it's an issue with Twitch. Ooh. Okay. Are we okay now? Oh man. Oh man. That was funny. And if that keeps happening, I updated to the newest beta of VFace. Cause usually the betas are always pretty stable. But yeah, I might want to go back to the previous version. Oh lordy. Oh, and thank you for complimenting my outfit, Weeby. I wore this on the last one, but yeah, feel like talking, if I'm talking about therapy and whatnot, and psychology should be a bit more professional looking. Okay. Let's put that over there. And that over there. Alright. Alright, so we're gonna start with... Wait, let me move myself over a bit first. Is the I'm having trouble wording today. The volume on the music okay? Like, it's not too loud, like you can hear me, or I'm not too loud. Sometimes I feel like I'm too loud. What? Stop that. Lordy. This is what I get. Honest to God, there needs to be a way to put it. Oh wait, I remember how to do that. I'm dumb. I'm a doom. Doom. Alright. I'm gonna try to make this pretty. What happens if we chroma key it? No, oh yeah, all of it just disappears. So I guess we're not gonna chroma key it. Oh well. Alrighty. So instead of what, why do I keep yawning? Oh my god. Instead of like a specific subject, because I couldn't think of one, I'm gonna be going over some basic like theories that you are taught in usually like Intro to Psych or Psych of Personality that probably will come up in my streams. We're starting off with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mentioned this in my my Harvest Moon stream. But sometimes I forget not everybody knows like what I'm talking about. But yes. And so this is the psych theory that basically tries to quantify like levels of basic human need, and to understand like why we went from like primitive like nomadic bands with not like strong social ties to the very social creatures we are now. And so basically, like we said last time, it starts off at the very, very bottom with physiological needs. This is food, water, warmth, rest, things that you'll literally like die without. And then comes the safety needs. This is the one I was talking about when I had to sell Weeby's heart, because I needed that money, because that provides security and safety, because it allows me to get the physiological needs at the bottom. Before, you know, like in more in like ancient societies, all people really need to worry about was like getting food and not dying. But now, some say that money basically qualifies as a cancel. We're off to a great start, y'all. Basically, I think I was saying that it comes across that money and has become almost basic need physiologically, because it's the only way to like get those things in easy access. And it's not on this list, but shelter technically qualifies as a physiological need too. Add a cancel. There are death counters, but instead we can just change it to a cancel counter. Oh, that reminds me. We have a new command that it was Weeby's idea, and we set it up yesterday. It ain't perfect yet, but you can type quote, like exclamation quote, into the chat, and it will give you a positive or inspirational quote. Because I would rather, why don't we quote great people rather than the stupid shit I say? I think that's a much better idea. Hi, Lily. How y'all doing? Y'all, you're one person. We're going over Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So, the bottom two, safety and physiological, are considered basic needs. In order to reach anything up higher on the pyramid, these need to be met. Which is probably why, like, I don't know, if you're homeless, you're probably not too keen in, finding love right now. You're probably more focused on finding, where you're gonna stay next. After you meet those needs, after we got enough money in Harvest Moon, then we can go up to the next level, the psychological needs. This is the basic needs for like belonging and love. Basically being able to feel like you are part of a community and that you have connections with other people. So it can be intimate relationships, as in like love, romantic, sexual, or just having friends. The reason that this is third is because having a community and connections with other people is incredibly important. You cannot further improve really yourself or reach like self-fulfillment until you are able to have that basic social interaction, as human beings are very innate social creatures, and that feeling of belongingness is what allows us to then further improve ourselves. After that, we get to esteem. So this is basically like self-esteem. So this is the part where you improve on your self-esteem, where you feel a prestige or a feeling of accomplishment. You improve like your view of yourself, and you're really boosting your own confidence. And once you reach that, you reach the tippy top, which is called self-actualization. And this is basically achieving your full purpose, including creative. But this is basically being the best you can be, is what like self-actualization is. And the basic theory is that like in order to be like your best self, you have to have all of these other needs met. And it gives you an understanding as to why some people aren't at certain levels that we expect them on. Like, if someone is super isolated, so they're on the 3rd level of psychological needs, it's not going to be surprising if they don't have a high self-esteem. Esteem comes after belongingness and love. So expecting, like a hermit to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm super confident, I love myself, is not very likely. Or someone who is more worried about safety, whether it's, like literal, as in like, I don't have a home anymore, or it's psychological safety, because psychological safety can be just as important as physical safety. But that will affect your belongingness and your esteem, and you won't be able to form healthy relationships with people if you are still constantly trying to fulfill your safety need. But yeah, that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So basically, when I was saying that I had to sell Weeby's heart and I couldn't engage in any flirting because I needed to fulfill my basic needs, we were poor as hell. And I needed to make money before I could even pretend to look at bachelors. Gotta make sure that Belle is safe and got food. I don't have rent, but have money. Need money. Does that make sense? I don't know. I feel like I rambled a bit. I'm in a weird mood today. I don't know. But, yeah. So that's Maslow's. If there's something that I didn't explain too well or that you don't understand, please feel free to, like, ask. I never really had to, like, stand up and, like, teach these to a class, and sometimes the way I explain something assumes that you have, like, may assume that the person listening already has knowledge about, like, these kind of subjects. Oh, yay! A fellow psych enthusiast. Oh, well, thank you. Next, then, I thought... Really? I would do that with the, with my abnormal psych. Because that's, like, my favorite part. I would just read, like, the chapters, like, I was in, like, the personality disorder chapters, and I would just do that in my free time because I just found them so interesting. Next, I thought we could do the attachment styles. Well, psychology can be very important in game design. Gosh, Rookie's just rolling in it. All right. Oh, I don't remember. Okay, it's gonna bother me if I don't remember what their name was. Ainsworth. Mary Ainsworth. Okay. So, this was whoa, hey face, calm down. It's okay. Nothing scary is happening. We good, Chi. So the next little theory I'm going to talk about is the attachment theory. This is one of the few theories that was actually created by a woman. What is happening? Stop. Is it because I'm looking to the side? Is it because I'm looking over here? No? You just... Okay. We good? Oh, okay, excuse me. This is about the attachment between a child and their mother and how it affects their relationship with others and the world as they grow up. So there was a famous experiment conducted by about this to figure this out. So basically what would happen is, a mom and their child would sit in a room together. The child would play and do whatever. And then the mom would get up and leave the room. And then they would watch to see how the child reacts. And this is a fairly young child. This is probably like toddler age. See how that they reacted with their mother no longer in the room. After that, a stranger would come into the room. And then they would watch how the toddler reacts to a stranger in the room without the parent. And then lastly, the stranger would leave. And the parent would come back. And they would watch how the child reacts to their parent returning. And they decided that there were about 4 different attached styles. The first one was they were pretty fine, when their parent left, and were relatively fine when a stranger came in. They were a bit apprehensive, didn't really interact with them, and then happy when the parent came back. This is what they called a secure attachment style. So they're able to trust fairly easily, which they basically trust that 1, the parent will come back once they leave, and 2, that the stranger is not there to harm them. So they have a good sense of trust. They're attuned to their own emotions. They can communicate when they're upset, and usually leads to cooperative and flexible behaviors in relationships growing up. The second style was anxious. This is basically, as it kind of sounds, when the parent leaves, the child would get very anxious. They would, either start walking around, calling out for their parent, or crying. The stranger would come in, and they would be more distressed. And then when the parent returns, they continue to cry. So, they run to the parent and hold on to them, but they are still crying. And this is what they called an anxious attachment. So they're very sensitive, and struggle to communicate what they need directly. This is because crying, especially in this age when toddlers are learning to develop to speak, instead of trying to communicate using words or actions, the toddler only communicates through crying to let them know what is wrong without ever saying what is wrong. And they tend to act out when triggered. Making partners jealous, or these are the type of people who tend to act a bit rashly, or are a bit hot-headed. They can get very caught up in their own emotions, and often that leads them to lashing out and doing things unintentionally. And the last style was avoidant, but there were 2 different types of avoidance, so they split that up. The first one was avoidant dismissive. Basically, child didn't give a fuck. Child did not care. Parent left, child was still playing, could not care less. Stranger came in, whatever. That child was still playing. Parent came back, child didn't care. This is basically where the child just has basically a non-existent relationship with the parent, or has learned to no longer rely on the parent for, protection or safety. They've basically become their own parent. Basically, they've learned that they cannot rely on their parents, therefore they're not concerned when they leave. So this is a type of person who downplays the importance of relationships because from the very beginning, they have never had a strong relationship with anybody. So they don't really see what the big deal is about relationships. They don't really get what everyone's talking about, They don't really understand. And that's because they're usually extremely self-reliant. These are the types of kids who basically raise themselves because either the parent was absent physically or absent emotionally, or, the parent was sick or any other sort of circumstance. Oh, hi, Snack. Today's theme is just interest in theories. I didn't have a single subject to go over, and I noticed that I was mentioning just offhandedly some psych theories in my gameplays. So I decided to go over some psych theories that, can either be that are really interesting or ones that I might casually mention sometime. Right now we're learning about attachment styles. This theory is used to describe the relationship between a child and their parent and how that affects their relationship when they become an adult. We're on avoidant dismissive, so these people can become more vulnerable when there's a big crisis, especially if it's something that, they can't control, because they're so used to doing everything on their own and kind of, taking control of their own lives that they don't really know how to react when they need to rely on other people, or it's something that they simply, can't do by themselves. They don't really know how to process that, and it can leave them feeling very emotionally vulnerable, and that is something that they usually do not like to feel at all. And the last one is the avoidant fearful. This relationship is pretty much described by the child is screaming. The parent leaves the room, the child is bawling, and not just how the anxious child, the anxious child's crying and is mommy, mommy. And, it's sad, but the fearful one, they're screaming. They're putting on a full-on temper tantrum when the parent leaves. When the stranger comes in, they get even more distraught. They're screaming, they're crying, they're running and hiding. And then when the parent comes back in, they run up to the parent and they're still screaming and crying. So this creates obviously a very fearful thing where this person is heavily dependent on relationships in order to feel emotionally secure and safe. So it's kind of like kids who need a blankie or a stuffed animal, and if you take it away from them, they freak out because that is it's called an emotional security blanket, but that is the one thing that makes them feel safe. And for these children, it's their parents and other people that they learn to very heavily depend on. These are people who strongly fear rejection because they get much of their self-worth from other people because they depend so heavily on other people, often have very low self-esteem, and have high anxiety in relationships. So these are the kind of people that these are the people who are who tell you that I can't live without you. They're the type of people who don't really know how to be themselves without someone else telling them who they are. These are the kind of people who feel self-validation through the validation of other people. So they can't feel good about themselves internally. They can only feel good about themselves when other people are oh man, you're such a good person. And then they're oh, okay, I'm a good person. But if they're talking to themselves in their head, they're I'm not a good person. Not unless Susie tells me I'm a good person, then I can be a good person. So these are often very unstable people, often the people who have usually multiple kind of disorders, along with probably anxiety and depression. But thankfully, avoidant, whether it's dismissive or fearful, is only present in about 10 to 15% of the population. About 70% is, or was it 60? 60 to 70% is, I'm not angry, I was confused. It has a secure relationship. And then the anxious has the other math portion that I don't remember because I can't math. What was it? It would either be 15 to something percent. Whatever. It's math. We're not math in here. We're psychology in here. And this leads us into... Nope, that's Maslow's. Weird, I thought I loaded that in. The attachment styles in adults. As you can tell, these are very similar to the ones that we just went over, but these are more in the context of establishing a relationship with other adults or people, your age. So they're still secure. It's on the axis of anxiety and avoidance. So they have low anxiety, which is positive, and low avoidance, which gives them secure relationship. These are like, not quantified, but what's the word I was looking for? Exemplified by having a relationship where you're interested in responding to others. You're interested in, opening yourself up to other people. While in anxious, you have high anxiety, but low avoidance. So this is where you're more interested in other people's responses. These are people who usually don't like to talk about themselves very much. People who are very hesitant on, opening up emotionally. Oh, hi, Samu. Hope you're doing well. The opposite, which is high avoidance and low anxiety, is the avoidant type, which is counter-dependent, which is the opposite of codependent, which they don't rely on anybody. People are very uncomfortable with intimacy, with relationships in general. They just kind of stay away from people altogether. If they do have relationships, they're often very superficial. And then lastly, there's the fearful, which is high avoidance and high anxiety, which these are the people who are socially avoidant, not because they feel like they don't need other people, but just because they're so unstable that often people around them tend to leave. And so they have become, fearful of creating attachments. But unlike the avoidant doesn't want really attachments, doesn't feel like they really need it. The fearful person really desperately needs these kind of attachments and validations from other people, but they are unable to get them. Ooh. Does that make sense to everybody? Now, obviously, no matter how much you try to put people into boxes, there's always going to be someone that doesn't fit. So there obviously can be mixtures. Stop that. Don't make fun of my ADHD. So you can get people who are secure in friendships, but very anxious in romantic relationships. But it usually tends to be that one of these is usually a prevalent factor in all relationships. Now, y'all don't have to answer, but based off of this, I'm kind of interested. Which do y'all think you are? Hey, ADHD crew! I mean, I can answer first. I am probably definitely the anxious. Ironically. But it's also these aren't set in stone, One of the quotes that you can get basically talks about how nothing in life is certain. Neither you nor your personality, nor anything that you can think of. So just because you currently fall into one doesn't mean you can't, teach yourself to get out of it. Like, I definitely I used to be fearful when I was a teenager. And eventually I moved to anxious. I moved to basically learn to depend on people less, but I still tend to kind of depend on people. Anxious and fearful, yeah. These also change as you grow up, Well, going through, your teenage years and puberty definitely kind of throws a wrench into everything. Oh, no problem, Flavin. Please, your education is much more important. But yeah. So just because, you currently align with one right now, or you aligned with one in the past, doesn't mean that's what future you is going to have. No matter which one you're in, obviously other than secure, you can always strive to be in that secure area. But it's okay sometimes if you're not. This is heavily influenced by what we previously went over, by your relationship with your parents. Usually your mother, but it can be usually primary caretaker. My late bill? Do you mean like a late pass, or? You lost me, Waby. Late pass. Well, I don't know if you're in high school or college, but if you're in college, I recommend sneak through back door. Keep your head low to the ground. Try and casually slide into your seat. If you're in high school, you're kind of screwed. Sorry. Oh, makes sense. Yeah, and if you're not comfortable applying labels, please don't. I just kind of asked for you to try and create engagement, so that I'm not just yelling all this at y'all. Not yelling, just telling all this. But this can be helpful into understanding how and why certain people act a certain way. Ooh, Subway. I love Subway. I love their Italian bread. Alrighty. Continuing on our theme of growing, or whatever our theme is, we're going to discuss. Oh, who is this again? Oh God, Erickson. Okay, yes, makes sense. Nothing important. Oh, meatball sandwich. Y'all making me hungry. Alrighty, the next is the stages of basically psychosocial, which is basically, your psychological development and your social development. So you just smash those two together. Erik Erikson is a very, very famous psychologist. He performed a lot of theories, and this is a theory. This is not proven. I mean, well, technically the theory of relativity isn't even proven, but psychology is much more difficult, and as in it requires a lot more. What, face, calm down. Okay, apparently I can't look to the side and talk. Chill. We chill? We good? I'm gonna calm down now? Alright. The theory of how we develop into the people that we become is a very popular area of investigation in psychology. I mean, to be honest, I don't even know how you would go about proving something like this. But Erikson posits that we go through these basic stages of developing our personality, and that's, how we become the people we are. So the first stage, these are color-coded, is when you're an infant. This stage is supposedly basically personified by trust versus mistrust. So what he's saying is basically, when you're an infant, the main thing that you are learning is whether or not you can trust people or not. This is usually between the parent and the child. And so, like our previous theory, this is if you can learn to depend on others or not. And basically, Erikson posits that this trust or mistrust that you gain in infancy then carries out through the rest of your life. And these questions that you are often internally struggling with increase in complexity as you get older. And when you're a toddler, the internal struggle that you're dealing with is autonomy versus shame and doubt. So this is kind of when you're testing the boundaries of your autonomy, of your ability to rely on yourself, to be independent. While the counter of that is dealing with the shame and the doubt of whether or not you are capable of being able to be independent. And then you go up again, and it's when you're a preschooler, it's initiative versus guilt. So whether or not you learn to kind of take life by the horns and get yourself moving, or whether or not you kind of become paralyzed by the guilt of wanting to push forward as your own individual self. This is, I feel like, very easily exemplified of, like, between a teenager and their mother, of teenager wants to be independent and they want to break away from their mom, but they kind of feel bad about having to push their parents away because, you're their child. They love you. They've taken care of you for God knows how long and how many diapers they had to change, but you're ready to be your own person. And this comes into play later as a teenager. Once you get to grade school, it's industry versus inferiority. This is the key point of whether you kind of learn or not. Of like, industry is like, do you work well? Like, do you have like a good flow of work? The current systems that are in place, do you jive with that? Do you work well in the kind of settings and the boxes that society has put forth? Or are you kind of being overshadowed by inferiority of being like, oh man, look how everyone else around me is succeeding. They're all doing so much better than me. Why am I not doing as well as them? This is, I at least personally can attest to it. This is definitely happens in grade school to middle school, is when you finally start looking around you and learning to compare yourselves to others. And either it is a positive lens, being like, oh yeah, I'm doing okay, I get this, I feel comfortable. Oh, thank you, Samu. That's very kind of you. Or whether you're kind of always feel like you're always falling behind other people, or that other people are just doing so much better than you, and why aren't you like them? Then this graduates to basically full-on identity crisis, because honestly, that's just what being a teenager is. It's just having a continual identity crisis for like 4 years. So the main thing that when you're a teenager is your identity versus role confusion. So this is often by, you're wanting to be an independent person, you don't want to rely on your parents anymore, but they still treat you like a child, you know? So you're like, I am an adult. Not really, but I feel like I am an adult. Like, I can take care of myself. I don't need to rely on you. But your parents still talk to you and treat you like a child. And so it kind of creates this confusion of like, where am I supposed to be? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like, where is my role? Am I supposed to be a child? Am I supposed to be an adult? This is the point in time where society is telling you that a lot of different things, you know? And you're trying to figure out, like, well, what am I supposed to be, you know? And if you figure that out, one, hit me up because I'd love the answer. Then you move into young adulthood, which is basically intimacy versus isolation. This is the point in time where, you know, you're out on your own and you have... Wait, did the music stop? The music stopped. No, I need my jams. Right. This is often qualified by whether you are pushing outwards for intimacy, because all of these, you know, these are internal stages that you are going through. So this is stated by, you know, reaching out to others, you know, looking for intimacy, looking to broaden your horizons and bringing in other people, or if you just continue to stay looking inwards. If you're not branching out, if you're not trying out like new things or seeking relationships with other people. And then you get to, you know, middle-aged adult. This is often exemplified by generativity versus stagnation. Generativity just basically means productivity in a way. It's are you moving forward? Are you constantly trying to improve yourself? Or are you doing the same old thing, working the same job that you have for the past 2 years? You go home, you eat a microwave dinner, and you go to sleep, and you repeat. Are you looking to introduce new things into your life? Or are you just kind of... A good way that I once heard it is, are you living your life, or is your life living you? This is why midlife crisis happens at this age, is because often it reaches a breaking point where the stagnation becomes too much, and you basically say, what am I doing with my life? And once you pass that, you're in the last stage, which is integrity versus despair. So this is pretty much coming to terms with that you're gonna die. This is basically, you know, coping with the fact of aging, of death, of moving on. And so it's either whether you learn to keep like your quote unquote integrity, keep it together, appreciate what you got, like leave something behind for the future generations, or do you kind of just get caught up in that despair that I'm gonna die, no one's gonna remember me, like what was my life even worth, kind of thing, and then you die. But oh, hi Eric. Oh, you just noticed this? I had it last Therapy Thursday too. Yeah, this is a new outfit. I feel it jives better than a crop top with talking about psychology. Thank you. Oh, no problem at all. Don't worry about it. But these were Erickson's proposed ideas of how we develop psychologically and socially throughout our lives. And I do think it hits on a lot of key points that, you know, that we do go through, like identity and role confusion, the existential crisis, is definitely very prominent in your teenage years. And I can definitely see, you know, the middle-aged, the generativity versus stagnation is like, are you still trying new things? Are you still trying to be adventurous, even though, like, you know, you're an adult now, you probably have kids, you need to have a steady job, but are you just kind of going through the motions, or are you seeking to, you know, still find enjoyment in your life? I kind of I get the trust versus mistrust as an infant, because that relates to the attachment styles. I'm a bit more hesitant when it comes to the toddler and preschooler, and kind of young adult. I feel personally that, like, the autonomy and shame versus doubt should be in preschooler, and then the initiative versus guilt should be in toddler. Because I feel like it's the toddler age that your parents kind of really start disciplining you, and you start learning right from wrong. You start learning, like, when you should do something and when you should not do it. While the preschooler is kind of, now you're learning how to kind of, like, be your own person as, like, a little kid. And then I just don't know how I feel about the young adult. Maybe that's because I'm in that section right now, but I can kind of see it, but I don't know. I feel like young adulthood should be, I don't even know. Y'all have any ideas or thoughts on this? I'll drink some water if y'all want to hydrate too. Ooh, Subway arrived. Well, those of you who weren't anxiously awaiting your Subway, y'all have any comments, or you just want me to move on to the next thing? Well, Eric Kuhn. I suppose it thinks, well, in that section, if we were doing my model where they would be reversed, I would say that it's based more about what is happening in that person's life, because there are stages, or there are things that can happen to you while you're growing up that force you to, to mature faster than other people, like psychologically mature faster than other people. But I think Erickson meant for this to be orderly. I don't think that it's hard to say, because I don't think a toddler can have an identity crisis, you know? So it's hard to say. I think it's more quantified by age range, but I do definitely think that like toddler and preschooler could be one group together, or I could even see toddler to grade schooler all being condensed into one group. But But if you're talking about being able to kind of like jump around to like go from trust and mistrust to intimacy and isolation, then down to initiative and guilt, I do not think that's how. Because as the little arrow shows, is that the internal struggle that you deal with increases in complexity. So like I don't think a preschooler could kind of really mentally understand like the despair of like your life being almost over. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's definitely more that you will come across a situation or, you know, multiple smaller situations that force you to kind of come, like, to deal with this internal struggle. Like, whether it's words. Things will happen that force you to decide, like, okay, can I trust people or can I not? So, I think when Erikson gives these age ranges, I think he's approximating when he thinks these kind of internal struggles may happen. But I definitely think that these internal struggles can be brought on by specific events. Because I definitely think that you can be like a middle-aged adult and like your parent dies, and that can bring on the idea, like the crisis of integrity and despair, because you're an adult, you're not super close, but that event of kind of being brought face to face with death can often make people, you know, question what are they going to do, like what are they going to leave behind. And I definitely think that a teenager can also be going through the questions of intimacy and isolation while they're also trying to figure out their identity. But again, this is just a theory. A psych theory. Alrighty. Now, we're going to go over probably one of the most famous psych, like intro-psych experiments or theories, or whatchamahavots. Alrighty. So this last thing that we're going to go over, unless I can think of more things to, is conditioning. This was briefly mentioned in the anxiety therapy Thursday, because conditioning is how all behaviors are established. It is through conditioning that we learn certain routines, certain behavioral patterns, everything. Conditioning is a very basic part of life. Conditioning is how you train your dog. It's how you train a kid. It's excuse me. Jeez. It's very prevalent in functioning as a human being. And learning about conditioning can also be really, really helpful in learning how to change your behaviors, especially when there are behaviors that you want to get rid of. It is through understanding classical operant the conditioning that you can better change negative behaviors. So, oh, hi Stella. How are you? Hope you're doing well. Taking care of Sid. Oh, well, thank you for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Sid. Yeah. So, classical conditioning. Oh, thank you. I'm just really passionate about psychology. I don't know if you guys have actually heard of or seen like the commercials for that dieting app, Noom, I think, Noom. Noom is actually using conditioning in order to change your behaviors in order to better fit a diet to lose weight. So now you don't have to pay. I don't know if you have to pay for it, but now you don't need an app to do it if that's what you want. I can just teach you. Well, you're in Canada, weeb. My fellow Americans should maybe know what I'm talking about. But there are two major types of conditioning. There are technically three types, but the third one isn't as important, but we'll briefly go over it. The first is classical conditioning. This was founded by Ivan Pavlov. This is the famous experiment with the bells and the dogs. Oh, yeah, okay, you've heard of it. Yeah. Don't apologize. You didn't do nothing wrong. You just live in Canada. Okay. Now we can look at some pictures of doggos. All right. Now I'm going to be explaining classical conditioning. This is the one by Ivan Pavlov, our Russian friend here. So, he conducted his experiment with dogs. What he did is basically, hold on. So, classical conditioning is defined by associating an involuntary response and a stimulus. So, in Pavlov's experiment, he has this neutral stimulus, which is him ringing the bell. And then he has the unconditioned stimulus, which is the food. So basically, what he would do, puppies, is every time he was going to feed the dogs, he would ring the bell. So, after multiple, I think it was weeks even, just by hearing the bell ring, the dogs would begin to salivate. This is because they learned to associate the ringing of the bell with the food. This is pretty important to understand. So I'm going to try and explain it as best I can. So the bell, before the experiment begins, is a neutral stimulus. Basically, before the experiment, you can ring the bell all you want. The dogs are just like, what are you doing? Stop. That's loud. It's probably annoying. And before the experiment, the food is unconditioned stimulus. It's just food. They don't have a specific association with the food other than, ringing of bells. Other than that it's food. And then it is through the process of this conditioning that they learn to pair the food with the bell. Once they have done that, the bell becomes a conditioned stimulus. So they have been conditioned to basically salivate when they hear this bell because they know it means food, or they think it means food. Does that make sense? I want to make sure that this is, if this makes, because this is important for understanding conditioning. Does this make sense? So, it's like when you're training your dog, Well, training your dog is more operant conditioning, but this is, that's why I'm worried about, like, for people who haven't had, like, a psych course. Okay, good. It's kind of like how when the school bell, like, the rings, when you hear that school bell, you associate it with, getting out of class. Just the bell by itself doesn't mean that class is gonna get out. It's just a bell. But when you're in school, you learn to associate it with, class is ending. And it's a similar case with the dog. Then we go into more complex kind of conditioning. Which is operant conditioning. Alrighty, operant conditioning. So this is a bit more complex than just classical conditioning. So, wait, no, that's a bit big. That's covering me a bit. Yeah. I don't know if you've had that with a teacher, but the bell rings, you start packing up, and the teacher just like, what are you doing? Class isn't over. Class is over when I say it's over. And you're like, but the bell. And they're like, no, I'm the teacher here. That's classical conditioning. The bell doesn't permit you to leave the class. The teacher does. But you have become so conditioned that the bell equals class ending that usually when the teacher's like, stop packing up, class is over when I say it's over, you're like, woman, the bell rang, release me. That's classical conditioning. Yeah, I hate that too. I hate it when teachers do that. Oops, that's big. Why you big? I just want to briefly talk about the definition on here. So, operant conditioning is when you learn to associate a voluntary behavior and a consequence. This is important that it is voluntary. For the dog, they are salivating. You know, they start getting all drooly and spitty and excited. That is not a voluntary response. You don't choose to start spitting all over the place. So this is basically is when they condition you to do something involuntary. Oh my god, I hate it when teachers, you're like, I have class on the other side of school. And they're like, well, that's too bad, isn't it? It's less oh, hold on. Alright, it's not important. Yeah, they do be power tripping sometimes. It's not important. I mean, it's not conditioning because it's hardwired into our brain, but an example would be like hearing a loud noise causing you to jump. Damn, Eric. Eric don't give a fuck. Okay. Let's go back to our rat friends. So, yeah. And teachers don't usually care as much. They're just like, don't interrupt class. If you're coming in late, just don't interrupt class. So operant conditioning is a specific consequence associated with a voluntary response. So this was done by B.F. Skinner in order to extrapolate on Pavlov's theory of conditioning. Because like we said, Pavlov's is centered around an involuntary response, like salivating. This is for voluntary actions done. So the famous experiment is with mice. So they had a little, they had a bunch of like mice to test, and they put a little lever in one of the cages. And what they would do is that every time one of the rats managed to pull the lever, treats would come out. So the rats learned to just continuously push the lever down for more and more treats. That's conditioning. It is the reward introduces and increases a desired behavior. So the scientists are wanting them to push on the lever. And so every time they do, they get a snack. A similar thing is, you don't want your dog to poop in the house, right? Every time they poop outside, you give them a treat. You are rewarding their behavior. You reward them because you want to increase the behavior that they just performed. When you don't want them to do something, when they decided, oh, we don't want the mice to pull on the lever anymore, they would give a punishment, which is just a small little electric shock. And the punishment is introduced to decrease a behavior. This is why, like, you give a kid a timeout. You know, they're throwing a tantrum, and you do not want them to throw a tantrum, so you put them in timeout. The timeout is a punishment meant to decrease the amount of tantrums that the child is throwing. I feel like this is maybe a bit easier. I mean, it probably seems pretty, intuitive, being like, someone does something good, you reward them so that they keep doing it. If they do something bad, you punish them so they don't do it again. Well, it's not that easy. I have something to... I don't know, this might be too confusing. I imagine so. You have to train them gamers. We can try this. I'm a bit worried that it's gonna be too complicated. Oh, hi, 𝒮𝓬𝓬𝒾𝒷𝒄. How you doing? Okay, y'all tell me if this is too scary looking. I'm doing good. Oh man, how am I gonna show this with... Y'all won't like it because it's gotta cover my face. Oh my god. Nobody important. I have an idea. We'll come back to that one. Lily's right. But also it's because gacha games condition you to spend money on it in order to get that dopamine hit of getting like the super, super rare card that you want. So it's a bit nefarious. Oh, we're talking about operant conditioning. Basically, to briefly summarize, what the rats are doing is that the scientists are trying to associate a voluntary behavior with a specific consequence. So they would put a little lever in the rat's cage, and every time the rat pulled the lever, they would get snacks. And so they are giving the snack to reward the rat's behavior because they want him to do it. Good. And then when they decided they didn't want them to use the lever, they would give them a small electric shock so that they stopped using the lever. That's operant conditioning. Oh, that did not go how I wanted. Holy crap. Let's try that again. So, to expand on this, we're going to talk about rewards and punishments and how to give them. All right, we got to scoot me over a little bit. Yes. Yes. Yes, Neko, but it's also even more insidious, or rather more insidious, is because they have conditioned you to associate getting the thing you want giving you a dopamine rush so that you would spend those $20 in the first place. Because otherwise it's just like, what, a JPEG? But they have conditioned you to be like, oh, I need that super, super rare card. Yes, they do. That's why they released it. They know that someone wants any of the cards. They don't know that you, 𝒮𝓬𝓬𝒃𝑔𝒷𝒄𝑔𝒷𝒃, specifically want this card. But they know that people want, their favorite characters. Or they want the super, super rare card. And so that's why a lot of games give you, like, free super, super rare cards. Because it gives you a hit of dopamine and you're like, I want more of these. Alright, so this covers me a bit. But this is about the different types of punishment. So, on the... Oh god, this way is Y, right? So on one axis we have behavior, whether we want it increased, which is reinforcement, or decreased, which is punishment. And then on the other axis we have the stimulus. This is whether you are applying a stimulus or taking one away. Oh! Hi, Citron! Thank you for dropping by. We're doing psychology. So, the different types of punishment is... Oh! Yeah, that's why I got into psychology too, Citron. Yeah, you should technically avoid them altogether. They're kind of basically sneaky gambling games. But I myself have fallen victim to a few. Now to go over the punishments, so I'm sure y'all have heard the term positive reinforcement. So this is when you are applying a stimulus to increase behavior. So this is giving a child a dessert for eating their vegetables. You are giving them something, which is a positive. You're giving them the dessert because you want them to continue eating their vegetables. You want them to keep eating their vegetables. A negative reinforcement is taking something away to increase a behavior. So this would be allowing a child to leave the table for finishing her vegetables. So you're taking away the requirement of her eating her vegetables. So this is going to reinforce her behavior that she doesn't need to finish eating her vegetables. Another one is positive punishment, which probably sounds weird. This would be scolding a child for disrupting class. It's called positive, not because it's good, but because you are adding something to the situation. So you are adding, a scolding, in order to decrease their behavior of disrupting class. And a negative punishment would be putting a child in timeout or making them miss recess for disrupting class. So this is that taking away something in order to decrease the behavior. To make it more modern, I guess, a negative punishment would be your parents taking away your phone because you got a bad grade on a test. That's a negative punishment. They are, or for staying up too late. Let's do that instead. Your parents are taking away your phone, which is taking away something in order to stop you from staying up so late, which is to decrease a behavior that you showed, which was the staying up late. A positive punishment for that situation would just be, yelling at you, but not taking away your phone. Positive reinforcement for that would be like giving the teen like an iTunes gift card if they do well on a test. Are you okay, Weeby? Oh, okay. I was like, are you screaming or... Negative reinforcement is often very unintentional. You see in parenting, it's often when the parent just gets exasperated. And so, like the kid is throwing a tantrum because they want orange juice. And you keep saying, no, you can't have orange juice. And, it's, you two are battling out who can do it longer. And if the parent just gives up and is like, fine, here's your orange juice. That is a negative reinforcement because they are giving the child what they want despite them doing a behavior that the parent doesn't like. So the child learns that, if I just scream long enough, I will get my orange juice. I don't know. Well, I thought he was maybe screaming, being like, I don't get it. But instead he was like, I get it. Now, here's just like a simplified version to help So a positive adds something and the negative takes something away. Yeah, the positive punishment, yeah. So this might be helpful. So it is only positive because it adds something. It's not positive because it's good. And the negative is taking something away. And the reinforcement increases the likelihood of a behavior. Oh, I forgot you guys can't see my mouse. I've been motioning with my mouse. And the punishment is meant to decrease a behavior. So yeah, the positive, that used to always screw me up too, because you're like, what on earth is positive punishment? It's not because you're doing something good, but because you're adding something. So it would be like a teenager argues with you, so you make them do the dishes. That's a positive punishment because you are adding something that wasn't there before. The addition is you're making them do something. you're adding something to the equation. While a negative punishment would be like taking away their phone. Oopsies. Oh, thank you, Weeby. Well, now that you got, I don't know if I want to show this Alright. Y'all just tell me if this is too confusing looking. Is this too confusing for y'all? Did you like the other way? This is basically like a diagram of how it splits up between reinforcement and punishment. This is just to go over, I wanted to briefly mention that the negative punishment, you can take something away, but there are two different types. That there's an escape, which is, you know, letting the child leave the table, and the active behavior, which is, you know, like, I don't know, it's fine. I don't know about why this is in the land. Yeah, no, I feel like that's too confusing looking. I don't want to add that. Too confusing looking. I like colors better. Well, that was all I had planned. I can do more psych stuff if you guys are, really itching to learn more. But if you've had your fill of psychology, that's okay. You can let me know. I mean, we have basically been at it, learning for an hour and a half. Oh, there was one. Oh, wait. Of course. I just realized that I forgot one thing, because I briefly mentioned that it's not as important as the other types of observational learning, but I did say that I would briefly mention it, which is there's also observational learning, because these are the types of behavioral learning. So we did the classical conditioning, which is the dog, which is a neutral stimulus, which is the bell ringing, is associated with a natural response, which is the salivating because they're expecting food. The operant conditioning, where you are increasing or decreasing a response, a behavior, due to either reinforcing it or by giving punishment. And then there's observational learning. This is learning by observing and imitating others. I mean, that's pretty... I think most people understand that people learn by watching others do stuff, but I just thought it was, you know, I should mention it. But yes, Citron, you may go ahead. That's officially the last thing I just forgot to mention. Y'all can hydrate if you'd like. Eric, yes, random chance can affect conditioning. Just kind of how like random chance can kind of affect all types of conditioning. This is often how negative behaviors get conditioned, much like OCD behaviors. So like an example of the random chance thing is the one time you forgot to check if you turned off the stove, your stove blew up. That was completely random chance. It wasn't, I mean, well, I guess technically it was, because you forgot to turn off. Okay, scratch that. We'll do the baseball example. Okay, so there is, in baseball, a myth or, like a lucky trick that if you tap the home run plate when you're at bat a certain number of times, you'll get a home run. This was brought on specifically by random chance. The plate, you tapping that plate didn't cause you to get a home run. It just so happened that you got a home run when you tapped the plate a certain number of times. And so you have then involuntarily conditioned yourself to think that, oh, if I tap the plate a certain number of times, I will get a home run. When really that was just brought on by random chance. Yeah, Citron, I wasn't planning on covering it in this stream, but when I do talk about DID and other disorders like depression or BPD, we'll be going over the dissociation and depersonalization, derealization. It's yeah. And for those who are kind of interested in like the here and now, I'm gonna make sure I get the god damn it, official definition. Wait, am I sad? Why am I sad? Did I press the down button on accident? I'm not sad. I did press the down button on accident. So, dissociation is, I mean, okay, well, Sam, you don't get scared, but yes, technically, this is how people get, like, quirky little habits. This is how, OCD is reinforced, that, you have to flick the lights a certain number of times, otherwise something bad will happen, because there was one time when you only flicked it twice and then something bad happened. But that's just a part of, as it says in the diagram, behavioral learning. This is just how we learn to act certain ways. So, it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it's often how people develop, quirky little habits or, small anxieties that they have about, seemingly like nothing or unimportant things. And it's not like something will happen once and you're immediately conditioned. It usually depends on like the importance of the outcome. You could like tap like an ATM twice and get an extra dollar bill, but that's not going to condition you because the reward wasn't that great. A home run for a baseball player, it's pretty damn great. So you're going to try it again to see if you can get another home run. Yeah, the importance is learning how to recognize it, because it can help you learn new positive habits or how to unlearn negative habits. This is how you can, like, learn to make things, like, not feel as bad. I mean, an easy example is, like, doing your homework. No one wants to do their homework. It sucks. Homework sucks. But what you would be doing is operant conditioning. Is every time you finish your homework, you give yourself a little piece of chocolate, you know, as a reward. And so then over time, you'll condition yourself to not hate the homework as much. You can still hate it because you know you're going to get a chocolate. You know you're going to get a reward. And then slowly, over time, you can take away that reward. You know, maybe only, instead of every time, you'll do every other time you'll get a reward. And then you'll do only like 3 times a week, then only 2, and then 1. So that way that the behavior stays, but you don't have to constantly keep up with the reward. This is how you change, create positive change in, like, diets. Or exercise. Which usually it's for people who are, like, really, really overweight. But, you know, every time that they eat a salad, they would get, like, you know, like a small, like, chocolate. Like a big, not a kiss, not like kisses, like something a bit bigger than that, in order to encourage them to eat and enjoy eating the salad. And so then, you know, the point isn't, the chocolate kind of isn't really helping, but the point is that you want to instill this habit of them eating the salad. So let's say you want them to eat salad for lunch every single day. So every time they have salad for lunch, you give them a chocolate. Then it takes about 30 days to fully, like, instill, like, a habit, to fully develop one for it to feel, like, truly natural. So after 30 days of you giving them a chocolate every time they had salad for lunch, you're like, okay, now I'm only going to give it to you every other time. So they've already developed the habit of eating that salad for lunch. And some people would be like, oh, well, if you just took away being like, okay, you don't get chocolate now, some people can just unlearn that habit. So by doing it every other time, you're continuing to reinforce that behavior, but providing less of a reward, because it's a behavior that, you know, like, as an adult, you should be able to do yourself, but it can be hard. Not everyone likes salad, and I imagine having salad for lunch every single day for, like, a month I'd get pretty sick of it. And then by slowly decreasing the reward, you instill the habit that allows the person to do it by themselves without needing a reward. Oh my god. Hold on, I gotta clear this phlegm in my throat. I'm glad you asked, Citron. I'm gonna put that down and just put me back over here. Autism and similar developmental disorders and ADHD, both function in a very, very different way. As someone who has ADHD, I understand it pretty well, and I actually used to work with at a company or at a job where I worked with children who had severe autism in order to teach them basic learning behaviors. These are usually relatively young, 3 or 4 years old usually, but they have severe autism, so they don't know how to speak. Sometimes they don't even know how to point to what they want. They don't know how to communicate. So to start off with autism in the sense of doing conditioning and behavioral learning is different, as in the sense that, or rather, I guess the best way to explain it would be starting with ADHD first. Is ADHD, in order to do conditioning and behavioral learning, the person needs requires more stimulus in order to function. That's the basis of ADHD, is that the person has it, is not given enough stimulus in order to, to pay attention or to do whatever task that it is. So they add something. For little kids, it's usually, talking, wiggling around in their chair. They can't pay attention because there's not enough stimulus. Oh, okay. I might have to go over the, in order to where's a good picture? Wow, all of these are really crappy. Okay. Yes, unfortunately. Did I press the down arrow again? I sent in a support ticket, and I tweeted at them just to, I don't know, make sure. It's kind of annoying, but let me drink some water for a second. All right. I don't know if you're still there, Citron, but everyone, I'm going to try and explain this as best I can. Oh, wait, I have an even better idea. All right, I just wanted to make sure, since you're the one who asked the question. Oh man, my desk is cluttered. Did the music just stop? So let's add this in so y'all can see it. You know what, let's say screw this and I'm gonna just put me on top of everything. Haha. Okay. Okay. We got this now. Okay. So, in order to understand ADHD, we have to understand kind of a little bit how the brain works. So, hello, my pen? Oh, it's because I'm on that, isn't it? All right. Hope y'all are ready to learn about some brain power. All right, the brain is pink, but it's like a light pink. Less of a neon pink, but whatever. So we got our brain. That's the human brain. And it's got all these creases and lumps and it looks gross as hell. That's our human brain, okay? So, inside our brain, you're inside the brain, y'all, now. I hope you're ready. Inside the brain, we have these little tiny things. Even tinier than that, but we have these little tiny things called neurons. Y'all might have heard of this, but if you already know about this, just bear with me. These neurons are basically like nerves. And I'm sure y'all know what nerves are. Their job is to send and receive signals. So we got a little neuron. They actually look something like this. Okay, that kind of looks like a sperm. But you know what? It doesn't even matter, okay? So you got a neuron. And we should have technically, okay. We gotta move. Oops. I have to do white? That's stupid as hell. We should move the dendrite axis over here. So we have a neuron. This neuron then receives a signal. Like the signal is coming in. Nope, that's yellow. That's blue. I wanted yellow. Comes in and it's like beep 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 beep. And it's telling the neuron, I'm like, yo, something's up. And so the neuron is like, yo, I got this. And so the neuron takes that signal Okay, that's a bit harder to see. Yeah, like that. And it sends it throughout its body. And then it reaches like these little ends. And it goes like the end. It basically just like beep, 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 beep. It's sending out the signal. And another neuron. There's a small, oops, I forgot that's on the wrong. And another neuron, whatever, it's the wrong color, picks it up. Oh, geez. Neurons aren't that long. And another neuron picks up that signal. All right? And then it continues on, and then that neuron passes it on, that neuron passes on, and this is how the brain sends signals. All right? Now, yes, they're doing what is that? Not Morse code, I think, to each other. So when we have these signals, this signal would be like, it's yellow. So this signal is saying, like, this signal is saying, yo, I gotta pee, okay? And so the neurons are passing this along and they're like, yo, we gotta pee. And so eventually it'll travel enough and then the brain realizes, okay, we need to go to the bathroom. So what will happen in ADHD is there will be a signal coming. No, that's blue again. There'll be a signal coming in, going like beep, 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 beep. Pay attention to me. Beep, 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 beep. And the neuron here, one of two things, well, usually the first, well, I won't complicate this any further. And this signal is saying, pay attention. The signal is telling you to pay attention in class. All right? Now, what will happen is that in order to send signals, your body needs energy. Your body needs energy to do anything. So the signal will go through the neuron body, but it won't be strong enough. To reach the other neuron. All right? Because what happens here, in order to activate a neuron, you have something called, we'll zoom in on this one. Oh my God, who keeps calling? Oh, you know what? I'm just gonna pretend I didn't hear it. Y'all didn't hear anything. No phone rang here. Do you got that? So oh my God, my neck, not my neck, my throat. What's going on here? You know, the neurons are like connecting and shit. It's called, a stimulus threshold. Basically, that is blue. I wanted red. So this is the stimulus. Wow, I don't even know what that is. That is basically the stimulus threshold. Basically, the stimulus needs to be, you know, it needs to reach a certain level before it gets sent. Because your brain doesn't want to waste time on useless shit. Like, your brain, like, you feel like someone breathes next to you. You probably felt maybe a single gust of air. But your brain is like, this isn't strong enough for me to send this signal. Because it's not important enough. So you'll have... Can you... This is horrible. Okay. Alright, this is the threshold. Alright? For in order the signal to send. Okay? What happens in ADHD is that the signal will only... Oh, geez. Oh my god, can you stop that? I'm trying to be, like, smart and educational. Oh, we should make this purple, so that way it makes sense. Okay. Because that's what the pay attention... Oh! Oh my sweet lord, can things stop calling me? Okay. So what happens is this pay attention signal up here. This one right there. It doesn't read the... It does not reach the important threshold. So basically, even though this is pretty important, the pay attention in class is a pretty important, you know, important thing to do. The brain is like, no, this is not important enough. See, it doesn't reach this threshold. So I'm gonna, wait, is my face freaking out again? I'm watching you, V-Face. I'm watching you. Basically, your brain is like, sorry, ma'am, you have to be this tall to ride, and you're not there yet. Alrighty? So even though these are pretty important things, the brain is constantly, all of this normal stimulus, which for us would be like, oh, this reaches the threshold. For us normies, or why did I say us normies? I'm not even one. We're chilling. Or you're chilling. You're like up there. You're doing whatever. Alrighty? Alright, you're chilling. Like, your pay attention threshold, you're Gucci, okay? Y'all don't got nothing to worry about. So people's normal reaction to like, yo, maybe I should pay attention in class, they're fine. It reaches the threshold of importance. But the people who have ADHD, what normal stimuli is weaker. So even though this is important, like it reaches the threshold for everyone else, it's not enough for someone with ADHD. Someone with ADHD needs more stimulation. So this is the normal stimulus they get from, you know, being like, oh, I should pay attention. But all of a sudden, Whoa, why is that still green? They start acting up. They add in a new stimulus. So they start rocking in their chair. So they start, I'm just going to put fidget. So they start to fidget. This brings them up to their threshold of importance that they need in order to feel stimulated. So that is why people with ADHD often either act out, or they rock back and forth, or they fidget with their hair, or they, tap their pencil. It's because what is happening around them. Oh my gosh, I just burped. Please tell me you guys did not hear that. What is happening around them is not enough. It's not enough to keep them paying attention. It's just, other than just saying it's not enough, I don't know how I, so basically, if I can stress that even more than I already am. But basically, what normal people need to pay attention isn't enough for ADHD people. People with ADHD need more stimulus in order to pay attention like everyone else. This is why, I even have one, I think it's in my drawer somewhere, a fidget cube. But behavioral learning can be hard because, especially in normal classrooms, teachers are not focused or really taught to how to increase this kind of threshold for people with ADHD. Most people don't have ADHD. So the teachers are focused on, teaching as many children as possible, which is understandable. But over time, and as they grow, if they don't grow out of it, people with ADHD learn to develop their own little tics or habits in order to help them pay attention. Like for me, it's twirling my hair. Fidget cubes can help. They didn't have fidget cubes, obviously, when I was a kid. But obviously, I used to, disrupt class. I'd get out of my seat, I'd start walking around because I'm like, I need to do something. I'm bored. But obviously, then through negative punishment, I learned to not do stuff like that. So instead, I learned to twirl my hair. Some people will bite their nails. Some people will tap their pencils. Some people will... This is where a lot of restless leg syndrome comes from. Restless leg syndrome is when your leg does that shaky thingy. It's so people who have ADHD can release that energy in a non-disruptive way. So, to get back to the very beginning question, which is, let me make sure to go back. How does it affect conditioning and, face? Can you chill? Thank you. I'll need to fix up my facial expressions. How it affects conditioning and behavioral learning is that it makes things a hell of a lot harder because teachers aren't, obviously, unless have an aide. Normal people have less restless leg syndrome too, but I felt like it's a common example that a lot of people do it, and it's a way to release excess, when you're anxious or when you're fidgety, you do that. That's people with ADHD have to do that all of the time in order to just pay regular attention. Face? Oh, face, I don't know. Maybe it does. The difference is STEM is often more of an autism thing. As in STEM comes from, it creates like a, not necessarily like pleasurable, but y'all know what I mean, not in a sexual way, a pleasant feeling. The people with autism, to connect in, well, before I then go into autism, y'all understand this, right? It's basically they can't pay attention, and so they start doing other things so that they can reach like this threshold of like being able to pay attention. It's like the people who feel like they always need to do something with their hands. It's because their body is not getting enough stimulus in order for them to do whatever it is that they need to do. And so it can make learning, any type of learning, very difficult if the child is, one, their ADHD isn't accounted for, or two, they have developed like negative habits for paying attention, which, you know, can include like disrupting class or, you know, getting up out of your chair. I mean, I guess I'm one of the lucky ones. I don't do Adderall, I do Vyvanse. And honestly, it's helped me like a lot. It just makes my brain calm down, you know? Yeah. But I mean, Adderall is often really overprescribed, but that's a bit of a difference. But if y'all understand, cancel, like that too. But y'all get the basic premise of this, right? So that, before I move on to like autism. And ADD is similar. That's, instead of attention deficit hyperactive disorder, it's just attention deficit disorder. So they don't have as much of like the physical fidgetiness. It's more of just the mental distraction aspect. Yeah, I like the Vyvanse because it has the whether it's like slow release or delayed release. So that way it stays continuous for like 6 to 8 hours. I don't know, it's helped me. It's expensive as hell, but it's helped me a lot. But can I just get like an okay or a thumbs up in the chat to make sure like I know you guys understand this? Because autism is like even more complex. With the difference between ADD, I don't know if chat caught up with me or not, is that ADD just doesn't have the hyperactive part, which is usually manifests like physically within the, you know, needing to get up out of your seat, needing to move around, the restless leg. It's more of just the lack of getting the response, like meeting that stimulus threshold. People with ADD usually are harder to diagnose because ADHD is easier to diagnose through like the acting out. The difference between the two, at least as far as I am aware, I don't personally quite understand. The difference is still kind of a bit contested. Because the idea is that there is a possibility that, yes, one is just a physical manifestation and one is a strictly like neurological manifestation. Or maybe the people with ADD simply have already learned how to control the hyperactive part, while the people who have ADHD haven't learned that, like that coping technique yet. So it's still a bit, And ADD is just like considered like a subcategory of ADHD. So it's like everyone with ADD has ADHD. And you know what? I'm not even going to get into the classification part. It's just usually people with ADD are diagnosed later in life, like as adults. And so since they don't, or teenagers, and since they don't show like the hyperactive portion of like the fidgeting, people are just like, oh, okay, I guess it's just ADD. Yeah, I mean, if you don't have access to a therapist, then or a psychiatrist, it's understandable. But they do it a lot on the internet. Please, 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 for the love of Lord, unless it's like all in fun and games, like right here, please don't self-diagnose. These kind of disorders are very, 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 very complicated. And there are different kinds of symptoms and different qualifications that people need to reach. But if you think you have something, go talk to a psychiatrist. If you have ADD and are an adult, you're screwed. Welcome. No one really knows anything about ADD in adults. Or ADHD. People used to think that ADHD was something you just grew out of. ADHD is fairly new, so there's still a lot of things that we don't really know. And it can be difficult sometimes for parents because, like, what is normal, like, just, kid energy and what is ADHD? A lot of the times, normal kid energy is then, like, overdiagnosed, and then it's a whole issue. Okay. And then with autism, I probably don't need this drawing thingy yet much, because I just needed you guys to get like the stimulus and the neuron response thingy. Basically, when it comes to autism, depending on the severity or like where they are on the spectrum, people with autism, I mean, I don't even really know. I don't think anyone who doesn't have autism can ever fully describe it. They just experience the world completely differently. Whether when trying to teach, like via behavioral learning, whether or not it just doesn't reach the threshold, of like the stimulation threshold for them to pay attention, is kind of uncertain. There are a few leading theories. One, which is their like threshold, like their the stimulus that normal things provide, like how this is ADHD, like people with autism are like down here. So like they're never getting enough, or specific things are ooh, whoa, okay. Trigger it way too much. This is why some people with autism react very, very strongly to certain stimulus. A lot of the time this is usually a noise, is usually the most common. So certain things, sometimes like physical, like touch, they may have like all the way down here, like it's not really registering, but sound registers way higher than it should. And so for them, it's a lot more intense, because the higher it is, the stronger the signal is. So basically, you're playing music on your iPhone at like a normal volume, and a person with autism could be hearing that like you're playing it in a megaphone right into their ear. But people with autism often experience things very, very differently. and their senses are often interlinked. I think is the best way, or intertwined or connected to senses that they should not be. I'm sure y'all have heard of the synesthesia. Yeah. Wait, I'm not sad. I swear I'm not sad. Synesthesia is when two of like your senses are connected to each other. Like, I'm sure y'all know Billie Eilish. Oh god, what is the... Yeah, the most common form of synesthesia is like what Billie Eilish has, is she can hear colors. So for her, whenever she sees a color, it comes with a sound. People with autism have something kind of similar. Yeah, being able to taste sounds or hear sounds or smell sounds or taste numbers. It's basically your brain is... Your neurons are picking up and delivering signals that don't exist, pretty much. And how to describe? Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I can't even... Or people can smell words or taste words or... But people with autism have something very similar, where basically their neurons kind of like cross over each other. Kind of like a... You know? When most people neurons are just like, you know, boop, boop, you know, just a straight line. Theirs are intersecting and they're touching when they're not supposed to be. And this kind of creates pathways that aren't present in normal people. Yeah. So it's basically you're getting... This is a signal from your eyeball. And as it goes down... It automatically, since they're crossed, intersects with the signal for sound. So even though there really is only one stimulus, which is you're seeing something, since it touches the neuron that deals with sound, both come out. Does that make sense? So you're only getting the visual thing, but since the neurons are touching and crossing each other, you automatically get the hearing. Even though there is no, like, auditory output. All you need is the visual. And for people with autism, it's something similar, but it usually, unlike people with synesthesia, is in a way that happens in a way that is distressing or affects day-to-day life. So, you know, hearing colors, I don't know how distracting that is, but, you know, the people learn to, like, live with it and seem pretty normal otherwise. For people with autism, the signals that they are getting are often so strong when they shouldn't be. So, like, if they had synesthesia and they have the hearing colors thing, they see the color and they get the signal for the color and the hearing, but it sounds like, again, like a megaphone. When maybe for Billie Eilish, it's just, it's like a quiet hum. But for them, it's super, super loud when it's not supposed to be. And, you don't need to be. Autism is a very complex and confusing and intricate disorder. And it's not something we even know fully about. Recently we just changed the DSM to put Asperger's into the autism spectrum. Psychology is always moving forward, and things are always changing. But this can be used to help understand, like, why your friends may react strongly to certain things. Well, I think loud noises bother everyone, really. I get really jumpy around loud noises, but what seems loud to us seems even louder to them. Or things like texture. Like, what feels like maybe normal, like, cloth to us, their signal, the signal that they're getting is so drastic that it feels like sandpaper against their skin. So their brain is interpreting the world very differently, and often as much as more, and the brain is creating more, like, stimulus than there actually is. Oh, right now we're talking about autism. Ah, Asperger's, huh? Then I have a general age range of at least how old you are, since it's no longer diagnosed. But this is only the physical portion of autism. This isn't even going into, like, the social aspects, which is a whole completely different thing. But this is more of the reason why, like, people with autism very much despise, like, certain either auditory noises or smells or tastes or textures, and why they enjoy certain ones, which is, like, called stimming, is because, like I was saying, they experience things so differently. When they are touching or doing something like what's a common one? Putty, like goo putty stuff. What it often does is the neurons again are crossed, like the auditory and visual, but the neuron for, like, the tactile, which is touch, sense of playing with putty, is, instead of the hearing, is crossed with a neuron that delivers dopamine. And dopamine is, like, the feel-good chemical. So that's why some people with autism are drawn to specific things, is because it creates a dopamine reaction within their brain. While usually for, like, a normal person, or a neurotypical, like chocolate, even if you don't like chocolate creates a dopamine reaction. So even though you... Oh, wait, I just completely lost my train of thought. Oh my god. So when you eat chocolate, it creates a dopamine reaction. And that's because of the chemicals inside of chocolate. But when a person with autism stims, it creates a dopamine reaction because the neurons are crossed with each other. Well, I'm glad you like it. This is a very kind of off-the-cuff one. The last one was very structured, just more about anxiety. But normal people can have things that they like, too, that aren't necessarily, like, stimming, similar to, like, autism. Like, I like rubbing, like, my face against, like, really soft, fluffy things. But, like, who doesn't love the feel of soft, like, fluffy things. Everyone likes soft, fluffy things. Or really like smooth, silky stuff. Like, that feels nice. But stimming is usually coming from, stems from unusual things. Like, most people like the feel of, like, silk. Most people think it feels nice. But it will be from an unusual source, like goop. Or some people really like that glue sand. So it's, the stimming comes from the source of, it's an unusual source of, like, dopamine or relaxation. The positive, I do know about hyperfixations. The thing is, ironically, the positive stimulus is positive because it creates a dopamine effect. Now, a small hit of dopamine doesn't mean you're, like, feeling over the moon. Dopamine is just what creates, like, a feel-good feeling. So it's not like they touch it and they're like, oh my god, this is the best thing ever. But it makes them feel good. Whether it can make them feel calm, it can make them feel happy. It doesn't necessarily need to be like this ecstatic, like, over the moon feeling. It can just make them feel, like, better, like, content. So it doesn't mean it necessarily, drug overdose with opium. Yeah. So it's like, it's in the same way that, you have a shitty day, and so you're like, I'm gonna go cuddle with my cat. That creates dopamine, but that doesn't mean that, like, it makes you happy. It just makes you feel better. You still had a shitty day, but you're like, okay, now I don't feel as bad anymore. And stimming can be like that, where, they're really stressed out, they're having a not so good day, and so they go to the stimulation and they're like, okay, this makes me feel better. But it doesn't necessarily mean, like, oh, I'm happy now. I don't know if that makes sense. So it is technically, on a chemical level, a dopamine or serotonin, because that's another happy drug, reaction. If your cat is nice enough. Well, please don't smother yourself, at the very least, Lily. I do understand the putting your face in a pillow and screaming, though. But yeah, I mean, it just creates a small, like, positive or calming feeling. Kind of like how petting a cat or petting an animal is very relaxing and calming because it produces, like, dopamine and other, and oxytocin and other reactions. Like, playing with a stim does the same for them. But while petting a cat is universal for, like, neurotypical people, and usually people who have, who are non-neurotypical, this is, like, exclusive to them. Oh, okay, I was like, please don't smother yourself. But to go back to, like, the learning, is that learning for them can be very difficult because their neurons are all crisscrossed with each other in ways that, normal kids aren't. Every kid's autism is unique to them. So the struggle is, okay, well, which neurons are crossed and which aren't? So which ways can I teach that work normally? Which are ways that aren't going to work? So the way that you would, like, normally teach, like, with positive reinforcement, like we went over, to not cry, or to not cry, but not scream, since their neurons are all, like, mixed up, they can't interpret what we're trying to tell them like a normal person could. And since we don't really have a way to be able to, like, individually, like, identify which pathways are where, it's really just kind of trial and error. So the issue is that basically all of the stimuli that neurotypical people experience can be interpreted very differently by people with autism. And depending on their severity, it can be even more so because they can't communicate, like what they need or how it's affecting them. So I suppose the best way is like the wires. Like if you think of the brain as like a machine, and all of the wires are crisscrossed and running over each other and into each other and are like connecting where they're not supposed to. So the signal isn't going to where it's supposed to, so the brain can't, interpret it correctly. Oh boy, I need to hydrate my throat. Ooh. My model did the freak out thing. Model, come back. You done? You done freaking out? Sorry, I just had to glitch out for a second. You know how it is. Yeah, that's what we all call him. Don't worry, Eric. It was great. Oh, my neck. But did y'all have any other questions, or? Things I could help you understand if there are parts that you don't. Oh, my throat. Good. All right, I'm glad. And obviously this is just what based off of like our current understanding of it. I would never really do interviews, but if you ever have a friend, if you have a friend who has autism, asking them, like what it's like, how you can help them, listening to what something or like a disorder is like from the people who experience it can usually be pretty eye-opening and helpful in better understanding them, especially because every person with autism experiences it differently. Oh. Yeah. That's really the the issue with, mental illness in general. really, I mean, I don't know if y'all have heard it, but people often say that the brain is the true oh my god, words. The true final frontier. Space used to be the final frontier, but we actually know more about space than we do about the human brain. And because of how complex the human brain is, it's hard to define everyone or to have something that can categorize everyone correctly. I mean, no, they were right. We were basically like, okay, we learned everything, now what? I mean, space is complex, but I mean, I don't know if I can say this since I don't know much about space, but I'm probably not nearly as complex or as intricate as the human brain. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of connections within our brains with trillions of neurons, each producing, unique and a combination of different chemicals, which can be each processed in different parts of the brain. The sizes of the brain and of the brain lobes and how many ridges are in the brain can affect the way that things are processed. Damage to any part of the brain can completely screw everything up. It's a very delicate and intricate thing, kind of like a China doll. That's usually why brain surgery is considered like the hardest. Probably other than open heart surgery. That's probably the hardest, or rather brain surgery is very risky. But hey, I mean, oh my god, my throat. Often people look at others with autism, like, with pity, but I think you should actually look at people who have autism with wonder, because they're experiencing the world completely different than we are. And so, if any of y'all have autism and ever feel bad or, wish that you didn't have it, one, that's completely normal. But the reason that life can be difficult sometimes is because you're experiencing a world no one else is. But if you think about it, that's kind of also a really beautiful thing. Yeah, a lot of people have it. And it's often really, especially underdiagnosed in women. Because autism in women also can manifest differently. Yeah. Howdy! You're kind of coming in at the very end of the stream, unfortunately. Oh, hey. Well, if y'all don't have any questions, or, you know, are good for right now, I might cut it off here. Well, I mean, this past, like, hour and a half wasn't even planned, so it's rather if y'all have anything left. I've just been going off what you guys been asking. Oh, yeah, we should see who is online. Yes, you passed it because there was no test. Oh, thank y'all for coming. That's a difficult question, Eric. I mean, there are different ways. You know, different kinds of therapists or psychiatrists want to go about treating ADHD. But sometimes the issue is that it's possible that the amount of stimulus needed is going to be too great or too much of a distraction to other people, like the other people in class. So the issue would be that, yes, we could just let them fidget and do whatever in order to get the additional stimulus, but the rest of the world is, you know, and the rest of society is not going to look upon that well, and is not, you know, tailored or accompanied to that kind of behavior. You know, if you fidget in class, you're gonna, like, bother other people. You fidget at work, you're gonna bother your employees. So usually, I mean, while that would be nice, it's often too much of a distraction for the other people around them. Though it's certainly possible if you did like a one-on-one kind of thing. Or, you know, they end up having like a job working from home. But I think it's often because it will, by just kind of letting them go, will impact their social life and their social interactions in a negative fashion. That either, you know, behavioral correctional therapy or medication is what's used. Not because, like, well, like, we could just, like, let them do whatever, but their life will probably be easier and may improve the quality. Alright, well, Weeby, which one has less viewers? Usami? Alright. And it's just Usami VT? Oh, of course. Thank you, Mad Hazard. Of course. Thank y'all so much for coming. I mean, I really enjoy doing these kind of things. I enjoy talking about psychology, so. Usami BT. All right. This time, if we're going to be doing Belle Sends Her Love, make sure we put the S. Alrighty. Y'all ready to raid? Yeah, Belle's just fine. Right, before I go, I should be doing a stream on both Saturday and Sunday to make up for the scuffed stream on Tuesday. The times are to be determined, but I'm kind of a creature of habit, so I might do it at 1 p.m. But I'll definitely send out a tweet. But be on the lookout for both Saturday and Sunday. Alright. Alright, y'all, let's saddle up for a raid. Good, good. Alright. We ride to war or to raid. Alright. Yeah!